Dallas, Texas, now using pronouns. The city came out with a new guidance, new document detailing why they need to use them, why it's so important for the functional operations of the city of Dallas. Before we read through what actually got distributed to everybody, let's get some background on the story about what is happening in Dallas, which is here the mandatory use of transgender pronouns. Story comes out, says an internal City of Dallas gender transition toolkit requires all public employees to use a transitioning person's preferred pronouns regardless of their personal beliefs. The Dallas Express got the document, lays out the protocols, says it is supporting an inclusive and productive workplace environment. Officially titled Workplace Gender Transition Protocols, the document was lauded by city staff during a recent city council meeting. Human HR Director Nina Arias told council members, I would like to highlight our gender transitioning information toolkit. This is part of Dallas's efforts to improve recruitment and retention here. If we force people to use pronouns, we'll get more employees and they're going to work harder and better. The toolkit defines transitioning. We'll read through it. City employees are expected to use the transitioning person's approved pronouns, and the transitioning employee's manager is required to police the pronoun usage. Some groups have recommended measures like these. Human resources company Culture Amp recommends including dead naming and incorrect pronoun usage in your formal definition of harassment and reflecting these in your policies. So if you don't abide by this new version of English, then you might lose your job and at some point prosecuted for harassment. Doing so will set a firm expectation for respect and inclusion of all non-conforming employees. Let's take a look at the document from Dallas, the Workplace Gender Transition Protocols, and FAQ. And work is going to get very complicated. Rather than everybody showing up and just working on their job, now we're working on proper pronoun usage, lest you fall into harassment purviews. Why do we need the gender transition protocol? They say, well, this purpose of the guide is to support an inclusive workplace for all. Specifically, this document addresses the needs of transgender and gender nonconforming employees. The protocols do not anticipate every situation that might occur. No, of course not. You're going to need another, 20 pages? This is already 20 pages. How much more do you need? Should everybody just study this every day on the way into the office to make sure nobody gets offended? How does anything get done? The needs of transgender and gender nonconforming employees must be assessed on a case-by-case basis. Very complicated. And this includes how best to apply these guidelines. So we're going to need like a team parse through this all, I guess, a couple attorneys. The goal is to ensure the well-being of these employees within their professional workplace and to ensure all employees are treated fairly regardless of their orientation or identity. This includes promoting adherence to non-discrimination policy and minimizing harassment. As such, these protocols are designed to help supervisors maintain respectful and non-discriminatory work for all employees. How do I use this? Well, let's say you're a new employee working for the city of Dallas. You're like, man, this great state of Texas, such a great free state. God, I can't believe we just left California. What a dump, man. So here we are, first day of work, and come in, they give you like a big stack of papers, and you get like a couple pages for vacation policy. It's really small, vacation lunch hours, dress code, meeting times, be on time, park over here, all that stuff. And then they give you this whopper 20-page manual, gender transition document. You go, what the hell is this thing? What is this? And so, well, we have a couple, people transitioning in our department here, and you got to learn all of this. And, well, what is this? I thought this was Texas. And they said, well, this is now Dallas, all right? And you're doing what we're doing here in Dallas. And you say, well, or else what? And you say, or else you're fired for harassment. We're going to report you, and your permanent file is going to be marked. Okay, I guess I'll read through it. Oh, all right. Is this like a big thing here? Okay, let me read it. The information is intended to be a resource for supervisors and managers so they can assist employees who are undertaking or considering a workplace transition. The document also provides useful information for this. A lack of knowledge about gender transition creates misunderstanding and might implicate the city of Dallas. We're committed in Dallas to no discrimination on the basis of any protected classes, nor are we. Employees of all genders are welcome, and this supports that. Workplace diversity is an organizational strength. It's not required that city employees, quote, believe in or accept an individual's right to be transgender or undergo a transition. Employees are entitled to their beliefs, but we're all required to treat the transitioning employee with equity and respect. If an employee expresses their intention to transition, the assistant assistance of the department and the supervisor is critical. So now the government is facilitating people in their transition in the workplace. The supervisor's actions will impact the outcome of the workplace transition, and everybody's got to just stop and pivot while a person changes. Be aware that the employee's decision is likely to have been carefully considered over months, if not years. By the time an employee approaches their supervisor, they're already likely to have gone through the process with family and close friends. It's not sudden, rash, or overnight. It's rather life event on par with becoming a parent or getting married. That was my next question, actually. I was going to ask, what is the policy for birth? What is the policy for getting married? Do they have anything that is substantive as this? What about death? Does everybody drop everything and aid the person who's going through a death? If you're transgender or undergoing a gender transition, if you're reading this document, you have the right to openly be who you are and bring your true, most authentic self to work. This means that while maintaining professional expectations, you may express your gender identity, your characteristics, and your expression without fear of negative consequences. I guess you got to just sit there and take it. If somebody comes up to you and just starts, being themselves, their true authentic self, you just have to sit there and enjoy it without any fear, because there will be negative consequences for you. These protocols are designed to help ensure that the workplace has tools and that your gender transition is successful and understood by your fellow employees and supervisors. This is going to be great for productivity and for diversity, and I'm sure the city of Dallas is going to be a lot more productive now that they're going to go through all of this. I'm sure their ROI, what they're producing, is going to be much better. Here, I don't know what all the terms mean. I hear them, but I don't know what they mean. Can you define them for me? Not really. But they say here, the terms here are not intended to label employees, but to assist the reader's understanding. It's not a comprehensive glossary, but you have to learn all of these things now, okay? If you work here in Dallas, just as a small, smattering of things. Gender expression, which is an individual's characters and behaviors, like their appearance, dress, mannerisms, that may be perceived as masculine or feminine. Right. So if you have a biological male who comes to your desk dressed as a feminine woman with makeup on and the whole deal, you got to just sit there and be like, okay, hey, what's up, Sheila? How are you? And you have the conversation about that without any harassment activity. Gender identity, a person's internal, deeply felt sense of being male, female, or something other than in between. Everyone has a gender identity. You must respect it. Somebody who's gender nonconforming can be perceived to have characteristics that do not conform to traditional or societal expectations. You have a lot of these different labels here, some of these which I think are pejorative. AMAB, assigned male at birth. MAAB, got to learn that one. AFAB, assigned female at birth. All right. Intersex means don't really fit the definitions. LGBTQ, a common abbreviation. We've got sexual orientation too. This is getting complicated. We've got cisgender, which is the opposite of transgender. Describes the identity held by the majority of people. And they say this to be cis, like you're a sissy pants. It's pejorative. And so they're essentially saying that you are different than the cisgender. Transgender means you could be MTF, FTF, you could be male and female when your gender identity is both. When your assigned birth is female, but you transition to male, you're FTM. When you're assigned male, but you transition to female, you're MTF. This is Dallas, your government. Now, some people described by this definition don't even label themselves as transgender. Wait, what? So what the hell was all that for then? They may use other words or identify simply as a man or woman or both or neither. Regardless, the protocols in this document apply. And you say, what? So you can't even tell me how they define themselves? They don't even really know how they define themselves. Regardless, I got to follow the protocols? All right. So they also tell us what a transition is. If you're a supervisor or manager, what do I do? What's expected of me? Who will help the transitioning employee and manage their workplace transition? So let's just say, for example, you already work for the city of Dallas. You're not a new employee at all. You've already been there for 10 years. They come here and they say, hey, guess what now? You're a manager. You're a supervisor for your division. Yeah. You've been doing a great job, by the way. Thanks. Yeah. We have a new project for you. Well, what is it? Are we building something here? Are we issuing a permit for this thing to happen? No. You're also going to be our new transition supervisor. Oh, like transition what? Products or services from one division to another division. I can transition one role to another role. No, you're going to transition employees. No, I understand that. But like from a building, like between buildings? No. Their genitals. What? Transition their genitals? Yeah, here's 20 pages. Read it. What can a transitioning employee expect from their supervisors or managers. And they say due to existing stereotypes, many transgender individuals face difficult situations. Keep in mind now, you're a new transition manager. You got to walk them through it. Become more informed. Let them know. Here's the overview for transitioning employees. You may feel very vulnerable right now, but don't worry, the city of Dallas will take care of you. Be sure to read through this. This might not be smooth. You get to decide who to approach first. Keep in mind that some aspects of your workplace transition will take longer. It's possible that very few people in your department have knowledge about gender transitions. This does not mean you have to train them, of course not, but you can help make sure that they know about these protocols by referring to them. So if you're being offended, if you're transitioning, you say, "Are you reading the protocols? This might be harassment." Says you have a right to privacy. At the same time, a lot of people need to know in advance about this, that you're becoming a different gender. You do not need to discuss your medical decisions because of the privacy rights. We're going to protect your confidentiality here, but now they tell us about the pronouns. As employee, any employee has the right to be addressed by the name and pronoun of their choice. City employees are expected to respectfully use the transitioning employee's preferred name and pronouns regardless of whether or not they believe in it, approve of it, or accept an individual's right to be transgender or undergo a gender transition. A legal name change and a gender change is not required to update the employee's name or gender. Supervisors should work to ensure that everything is updated. They got to make the new name plates, new name tags, new ID cards with new names, update the city webpage, phone directories, email addresses, give them a new name, team rosters and org charts, get new photographs, updated across the board. Some employees are required to have different licenses. All employees have the right to all gender restrooms, which are available for everybody to use. For dress codes, transgender and gender non-conforming employees have the right to comply with dress codes consistent with their gender identity. So that's going to be, I'm an employee or coworker that is being harassed based on gender. What can I do? Lots of recourse. The city of Dallas is committed to providing a workplace free of discrimination. Hate will not be tolerated. Now, they say that discrimination based on gender identity or expression is not limited to, but does include the following acts. Termination of an employee as a result of stated or unstated discomfort with a gender identity expression. This is if somebody terminates somebody else because of their gender identity. That is not acceptable. If you refuse to hire somebody because of their gender identity, not acceptable. Don't give them access to locker rooms. Prohibit an employee from dressing according to their gender identity. Okay, so locker rooms too, or restrooms. So male to females can use the women's locker rooms and restrooms in Dallas now. If you prohibit an MTF from dressing as an F, then that's illegal. Refusing to respect the gender identity by referring to a name or pronoun that do not conform to their gender identity. Now, they acknowledge that, yeah, during the initial stages of a transition, there are likely to be some infrequent, unintentional references to the former identity. Now, said unintentional references can be expected due to the habit of human error. However, managers are now responsible for ensuring other employees in the workplace adjust to the new name and pronouns as soon as possible. So you are now a gender transitioner manager. And if somebody uses a he, her, or a she, him, or whatever they are, that's going to be a big problem. Acts of retaliation against an employee for objecting to enforcement is also not allowed. An employee who has experienced or witnessed discrimination may file a formal complaint with the Office of Equity and Inclusion. That's nice. Or the city's HR department. All complaints will be investigated. Any employees found to be in violation of the new pronoun policy may be disciplined and may be terminated. Now, there's more here on this document. They have a whole plan in place. So if you want to go through, here's the process now. Meet with a point of contact, schedule a meeting, create a transition team, come up with a timeline, meet with the supervisor. This is basically government-funded transition plans through the city of Dallas, guiding them through this. I mean, they probably wouldn't get this type of framework and structure anywhere else but for this. If the first point of the contact is not HR, supervisor and employee should have a workplace transition plan. The date should be known when it will formally happen, when they want their pronouns to change, how are managers going to be made aware of the change, decide what mandatory training will be offered for coworkers. So if you now have a former colleague who changes or a current colleague who changes, you might have to have mandatory training to learn how to deal with that person. And also the day the transition will be made known to the work team. Very important dates. Look at this plan. Explain that the former person is known as old name will now be new name. They give you a template email. Also explain that the employer of this person is now going to be known as this name. First date of the transition. Here's the timeline. It goes on and on and on. They even give you some nice forms and paperwork, just like the government is great at creating. Wow, this is going to be a lot of work for them. So the city of Dallas is now officially a government-funded, subsidized transition management team, making sure that pronouns are being enforced and that there's a timeline and a framework that's being followed to make this very, very easy and painless. So they say, in the great state of Texas,